Hi, I'm back with chapter 4 today of Surviving Bear Island. And where we left off, Tom had just seen a bear and he's looking at all these fish in a stream and he's trying to figure out if he could somehow catch one because he is really hungry. So here we go with chapter 4. I didn't dare move until the bear moved northward. I watched it disappear into the forest and then reappear several minutes later farther along the shore. Then it climbed the next point and was gone. Two bald eagles moved in to clean up what the bear had left, along with a flock of gulls. I walked upstream, opposite of where the eagles and gulls were feeding, found a shallow spot, and crossed. As I stepped out of the water, the gulls squawked and rose, flying down to the shoreline where they resettled at the mouth of the creek. The eagles departed silently, their long wings carrying them skyward. I faced the carnage. Not much but heads, tails, and bones, still clinging to the heads of the bear-killed salmon, were bite-sized chunks of dull pink meat. Leftovers from the bear, but I'd take them. I grabbed a salmon by the tail. It slipped from my hand into the matted down beach grass. Fish slime and bear drool covered it. I wiped my hand on the grass. Nasty. I hunted around and found 5 or 6 fresh kills. Then I carried them across the creek and downstream to the spot where I had observed the bear. The spot was out in the open, so I could see if the bear came back, or if another one showed up, or if my dad appeared from the forest or from up the coast, or even from the way I'd come, I'd see him. I used another hunk of fire starter stick to get a fire going. I kept adding slightly damp sticks and turned the steaming mass of wood into a small blaze. The fire starter sticks, little brown rectangles of solid fuel, were awesome. It was like having a mini fire to start your real fire. You could focus on getting small sticks to catch over a steady flame. My dad, he knew his stuff. Without the survival kit, I'd be scarfing raw salmon and probably puking it back up. That is, if I was even still alive. That first fire had kept me from freezing to death, kind of anchored me to my own life. I could have just curled up in a ball and let the cold take me. Build up a bed of coals, get some green alder branches. It grows just above the beaches. Lay the green alder crisscrossed to make a grill. Put the fish on the grill and cover it with alder leaves. Grilled smoked salmon and nothing to clean up. He wanted to cook a salmon for me like this, but me and my dad, we hadn't caught any. Hadn't fished much, really. My dad really wanted to do an epic trip. That's what he'd said. A big journey, the kind he used to do with Mom before I was born. Said if I liked this trip, then next summer we could do a whole month. I hadn't said anything. Didn't know if I'd even want to do another kayak trip. I wanted to get my learner's permit and then my driver's license so I could get to town when I wanted. So I could eventually have a freaking life outside our house in the sticks. So I could take guitar lessons and join any school club or play any sport I wanted. So I could do what I want without depending on my depressed dad to get off his butt and take me somewhere. Anywhere. But now, I'd kayak with him the whole summer next year if it meant finding him alive. When Mom was alive, I didn't feel as isolated because she was always talking to me or getting the 3 of us to do things or taking me with her when she went to visit Heather's mom. I missed Heather. We were the same age and our moms were best friends. But they moved away 3 years ago, right after Mom died. Me and Heather even used to take baths together when we were little, and I've got pictures to prove it. They're planning on coming back after Heather's dad finishes law school. We get a card every year with a photo. In the last one, Heather had her braces off. A spruce branch bounced up and down just in back of the forest. I took a step back, my heart pounding. Dad? Something dark flickered between the branches. Bear! I took another step back. Then 2 blue-colored birds with black crests atop their heads flew toward me and landed in a tree closer to the fire. I let out a sigh. What if it had been a bear? Tom, take a breath. Whenever you see something move, just take a breath. Focus and then respond. Alert but calm. Alert but calm, I thought. It might sound easy, but it's not. Especially when you hope that every little sound or movement is your dad and not some animal that might try to eat you. Get some green alder. I turned back to the fire. Green alder? Screw that. I'm starving. I'm just going to use the wood I've already collected. My stomach was an empty pit and I needed to fill it. I crisscrossed some thin branches on top of the coals and laid the fish carcasses on them. Instead of alder leaves, I ripped handfuls of beach grass from the ground and used them to cover the fish. The beach grass stalks were stiff and about an inch wide. I heard hissing from under the beach grass. I hoped it was bear drool burning off. After a few minutes, I started to smell cooked fish, a smell that never excited me at home. I spied a little orange flicker under the beach grass. Then the orange reached through the beach grass. I blew on the flames, which disappeared for a moment, then came back stronger. Again, I blew with the same result. The beach grass caught fire. It turned black and started to curl. Flakes of ash drifted upward, and a wall of heat hit my face as an explosion of orange and red engulfed the fish. I grabbed a stick and knocked 3 of the carcasses out of the flames, then snatched the other 2 by the tails and flung them out. And there they sat, steaming and smoking on the rocks. I touched one, and it wasn't as hot as I thought it'd be, so I picked it up by the backbone, turned the charred side toward my mouth, and took a bite. Burnt fish, not bad. In fact, under the crispy skin, it wasn't so burnt. Just cooked, even a little juicy, and seasoned with bear drool. But the unburnt side was still raw, so I gnawed on the charred sides of the other fish, then I placed each one back on the coals to burn cook the other side. As tasty as it was, I wanted to singe that bear drool off. But there wasn't much meat. Just a little below the heads, some flakes along the backbones, and a hunk by the tails. I sucked the backbones like a high-powered vacuum cleaner, the kind my dad used on building sites, until every speck of meat was gone, and then I wished for more. I want to burn cook a whole fish without bear drool, a fish that I'd caught. I crossed the stream and hiked north along the edge of the forest, calling out for my dad, but I'd strained my voice yesterday, and after a while I could barely speak. So I walked just inside the forest, dodging Devil's Club, peering behind the trunks of massive trees, hoping to find my dad leaning against one. My heart thumped in my raw chest, my eyes hungry for any sign of him. A scrap of clothing, a paddle, a dry bag. When I reached the next point, I turned and retraced my steps. Maybe he'd swum to shore south of where I'd washed up. The wind and waves had pushed me south, so maybe he'd been pushed south even farther. But now, the water was turning gray, and the pale red outline of the sun barely breaking through the clouds, was sinking toward the horizon. I had maybe a couple hours of daylight left, and I needed firewood. Tomorrow, I'd climb the steep point to the south of my cove and keep looking. I hiked back over the point, and I rebuilt my fire under the same massive spruce tree, and then collected more wood. It started raining lightly. I mean, you couldn't even tell unless you stepped out onto the beach and tilted your face up. Only then could you feel the mist on your face. I dumped some wood next to the fire. I was already hungry again, and even though I wasn't freezing like yesterday, I still wasn't warm. Warm like I'd been with a tent and a sleeping bag. And dry. I still wasn't dry. I took the emergency blanket out of the wrapper. It was silver and thinner than tinfoil, but really flexible. You could scrunch it up like a plastic bag and it wouldn't rip. And it was big, 7 feet long and about 4 feet wide. I draped it over my head and shoulders and pulled it around me like a cape. But the fire burned down and I got cold. So I shed the blanket, added wood to the fire, and then searched behind camp for more. I stepped over a rotting log, and my foot sank and made a sucking noise, like I'd stepped into deep mud. Fresh bear scat, a huge mother of a pile. I twisted my foot out of the crap, then noticed another mound beside it. Now my heart was pounding. I scanned the forest for movement. Relax, I said, relax. But my heart kept pounding. I looked at the scat again and eyed some purple dots mixed in the dark brown. Whole blueberries. Somehow they'd survived the journey through the bear's digestive system. I didn't want any part of myself making that journey. I glanced around, gulped some air. But the berries. I touched my empty stomach. Food and firewood. I needed both. Berries. Okay, I'll eat berries, I said. I'll eat a boatload of berries wherever I can find and whatever I can find before dark. I hiked across the slope to a tangled mass of deadfall where several trees had fallen, one on top of the other, and began pulling branches out, making a pile. I glanced toward camp. Then I looked up slope and side to side, searching for bears in the twilight. I scrambled further up the deadfall, and there they were. Blueberries. I plucked one from a branch, dark blue and round. I rolled it around in my hand and popped it into my mouth. Then my dad's voice popped back into my head. Most blueberries in Prince William Sound have little white worms in them. They really grossed your mother out. She refused to eat them, but it's a good protein source to know about if you need it. And you can't even taste the worms. Worms or no worms, I said. I'm hungry. Bring them on. I attacked the bushes, eating every berry in the small patch. Maybe this is how it is. Move along, find a berry patch and eat. Fill up your gut with worms, just like the bears. There it was again in my mind. Bears. This place is full of bears, but it's full of food too. Rarely will a bear prey on a human. Most bear attacks happen to people who are alone. We've got each other. I pulled more branches from the deadfall and made another pile of wood. I kicked at the ground. We didn't have each other. Not right now. And that's the end of chapter 4. Tomorrow we'll see how Tom's night went, and we'll start chapter 5.